Alan had always envisioned a life filled with peace and solitude. As he pulled into the serene Pine Creek neighborhood, he felt a wave of tranquility wash over him. The tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and charming houses painted a picture of the perfect suburban life he had longed for. A reserved and introverted man by nature, Alan believed this new home would provide the sanctuary he needed after years spent in the hustle and bustle of city life. Upon settling into his cozy abode, Alan relished the quiet moments, sipping coffee on his porch, tending to the small garden he envisioned cultivating, and enjoying the sounds of nature that surrounded him. It was everything he had hoped for, a stark contrast to the chaos he had left behind. However, this peaceful existence was soon shattered when he encountered the local homeowners association. Led by the ambitious and power-hungry president, Karen, the HOA approached Alan with an air of authority that made him uneasy. They insisted that every homeowner must join their association to maintain the neighborhood's charm and uphold certain standards. While many may have acquiesced to their demands out of fear of confrontation, Alan stood his ground. He believed in his right to live freely without being beholden to a governing body that dictated how he should manage his own property. Little did he know that this decision would set off a dangerous feud, igniting tensions that would soon spiral out of control. As Alan settled into his new life, unaware of the storm brewing around him, he remained determined to protect his newfound sanctuary, a determination that would soon be tested in ways he could never have imagined. Alan's tranquil life took an unexpected turn when he first encountered the local homeowners association. One sunny afternoon, as he was pruning his garden, a sleek car pulled up in front of his house. Out stepped Karen, the HOA president, her presence commanding and her demeanor unyielding. With a clipboard in hand and an air of authority surrounding her, she approached Alan with the intent of introducing him to the HOA's expectations. "Welcome to Pine Creek," she began, her voice smooth yet assertive. "We're glad to have you here. However, it's important that you understand our community guidelines." She quickly launched into a detailed explanation of the HOA's benefits, touting well-kept landscaping, neighborhood events, and a strong sense of community spirit. But beneath the surface of her polished presentation lay an underlying threat. "Joining our HOA is not just beneficial, it's essential," Karen emphasized, her tone shifting slightly. "Failure to comply could lead to fines and other consequences that you might find quite unpleasant." Alan felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he listened to her veiled warnings. It was clear that dissent was not welcomed in Pine Creek. After Karen departed, Alan sat on his porch, contemplating the encounter. The idyllic life he had envisioned was suddenly overshadowed by the looming presence of the HOA. He pondered whether joining would truly enhance his experience or simply tether him to rules that could infringe upon his freedom as a homeowner. Determined to maintain his independence, Alan resolved not to be intimidated. He would stand his ground against Karen and her association, unaware that this decision would ignite a conflict that would challenge everything he believed about community and justice. Little did he know that this feud was only just beginning. In the days following his unsettling encounter with Karen, Alan grappled with the decision before him. The more he thought about it, the more resolute he became. He valued his independence and believed that homeownership should not come with strings attached. When the HOA's invitation for membership arrived in his mailbox, he made up his mind he would not join. The next meeting of the HOA was held just a week later, and Alan attended, ready to express his stance. As he entered the community center, he felt a sense of unease wash over him. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and as he took a seat among the other homeowners, Karen's eyes locked onto him. When it was his turn to speak, Alan stood tall and clear-headed. "I appreciate the work you do for the community," he began, "but I believe I can manage my property without the oversight of an HOA. I'm choosing not to join." His voice, calm yet firm, echoed through the room. The reaction was immediate and palpable. Karen's face turned an alarming shade of red as she struggled to maintain her composure. "You must understand, Alan," she shot back, her tone dripping with disdain. "This isn't just about you. It's about maintaining standards for everyone in Pine Creek. Your refusal puts us all at risk." What? Alan sensed the mounting hostility around him but held his ground. He would not be intimidated by Karen or her board. As he left the meeting, however, he could feel their eyes on him, staring daggers of resentment and anger. That night, Alan couldn't shake the feeling that his refusal had ignited something far more dangerous than mere discontent. The HOA would not take this lightly. They were already scheming ways to retaliate. Unbeknownst to him, a storm was brewing, a storm that would soon engulf his quiet life in Pine Creek. In the weeks following his refusal to join the HOA, Alan found himself increasingly isolated in Pine Creek. What had begun as subtle disapproval from his neighbors quickly escalated into an all-out campaign of harassment orchestrated by Karen and her board. They were determined to make an example of him, to show that dissent would not be tolerated. It started with small acts of intimidation. Alan noticed his mailbox was vandalized, its flag bent and broken, the paint splattered with unidentifiable substances. Next came the late-night disturbances, loud music blaring from nearby homes, accompanied by raucous laughter that echoed through the stillness of the night. It felt like a calculated effort to disrupt his peace and push him out. Then one evening, Alan discovered that someone had left an anonymous note on his front door, filled with baseless accusations about property violations. "You're ruining our neighborhood," the note read. "Join the HOA or face the consequences." The message was clear. They were watching him closely, waiting for any misstep to pounce on. As the harassment intensified, Alan felt a mix of anger and determination. He knew he had done nothing wrong, he simply wanted to live freely in his home. Yet Karen and her cohorts showed no signs of relenting. The atmosphere in Pine Creek grew increasingly hostile, and Alan's sense of security began to erode. Despite the mounting pressure, he refused to back down. Instead, he resolved to document everything: the vandalism, the disturbances, and the false accusations. He would not be a victim in silence. Little did he know that each act of intimidation was only fueling his resolve to uncover the truth behind Karen's tyrannical regime and expose her for what she truly was. What started as a struggle for personal freedom was transforming into a battle for justice, a battle that was just beginning. One fateful night, Alan's world was turned upside down. He had returned home after a long day, the weight of the ongoing harassment still heavy on his shoulders. As he settled in for the evening, the warmth from his fireplace provided a comforting glow that contrasted sharply with the tension brewing outside. But just as he began to relax, an acrid smell filled the air, jolting him from his thoughts. Rushing to investigate, Alan's heart sank as he saw flames licking at the corners of his living room. Panic surged through him as he grabbed his phone and dialed 911. The fire spread rapidly, fueled by years of accumulated materials and furnishings. Within moments, firefighters arrived, battling the blaze that had engulfed his home. But despite their best efforts, the damage was extensive: walls charred, furniture reduced to ashes, and memories lost in the inferno. As Alan stood outside, watching his sanctuary crumble before his eyes, a mix of devastation and fury coursed through him. This was no mere accident, he felt it in his bones. The flames that consumed his home were not just destructive forces of nature, they were a glaring symbol of the hostility he had faced since refusing to join the HOA. Once the fire was extinguished and the smoke cleared, Alan began to piece together what had happened. He meticulously examined the remnants of his home and sought answers from neighbors who had witnessed the chaos unfold. Each conversation only deepened his suspicions about Karen and her associates. Determined to uncover the truth behind this horrifying incident, Alan plunged into an investigation of his own. He started documenting everything: security footage from nearby houses, witness statements, and anything that could unveil the circumstances surrounding the fire. This tragic event marked a pivotal turning point for Alan. It ignited a fierce resolve within him to confront those who had wronged him and seek justice for what he had lost. With the ashes of his home still smoldering, Alan threw himself into a relentless quest for the truth. The fire had stripped away his sanctuary, but it also ignited a determination within him to uncover the dark secrets lurking beneath Pine Creek's idyllic facade. He began by scrutinizing every piece of evidence he could find, from reports filed with the local fire department to conversations he'd had with neighbors over the past few months. One evening, while sifting through old HOA meeting minutes at the community center, Alan stumbled upon a series of suspicious entries. They detailed dubious financial transactions and decisions that favored certain members of the HOA while neglecting others. His instincts told him these were not just clerical errors, they were signs of corruption that ran deep within the organization. Alan stared at the incriminating paperwork, heart racing as the weight of his discovery sank in. Sometimes timing changes everything. Just like subscribing to this channel seems to bring good luck to homeowners facing tyrannical HOAs. At least, that's what people keep telling me in the comments. But back to the story, Alan knew he needed to dig deeper, determined now more than ever to expose Karen's secrets and restore justice in Pine Creek. Digging deeper, Alan reached out to fellow homeowners who had also faced intimidation tactics from Karen and her board. One neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Collins, nervously recounted how her own property had been targeted after she refused to comply with HOA demands. She revealed that her backyard had been vandalized, and that she had witnessed strange individuals lurking around Alan's property on several occasions. As he pieced together these accounts, Alan's heart raced. There was a clear pattern emerging. The HOA was not just enforcing rules, they were employing malicious tactics to control the neighborhood through fear and coercion. Then, one fateful afternoon, while reviewing surveillance footage from a neighbor's camera, Alan's suspicions were confirmed. He found images of a shadowy figure near his home on the night of the fire. The figure matched descriptions of individuals associated with Karen's inner circle. Armed with this incriminating evidence, Alan felt a wave of resolve wash over him. He was no longer just a victim. He was a man on a mission to expose the corruption within the HOA and reclaim his life. With each new revelation, his determination only grew stronger. He would confront Karen and her cronies and ensure that justice would prevail. As Alan delved deeper into his investigation against the HOA, a crucial aspect of his identity began to surface. He was not merely a quiet homeowner. He was a respected judge, known for his integrity and extensive legal expertise. For years, Alan had presided over cases that upheld justice, and now it was his turn to seek it for himself and his community. His background in law had equipped him with the tools necessary to navigate the complexities of the legal system. He understood the intricacies of property rights, contracts, and the responsibilities of governing bodies like the HOA. This knowledge gave him a significant advantage as he prepared to confront Karen and her board. Alan had cultivated connections throughout his career, attorneys, law enforcement officials, and even community leaders who respected him for his fair judgments and commitment to the law. He knew he could leverage these relationships to gather support for his cause. It wasn't just about defending himself anymore. It was about exposing the corrupt practices of the HOA and restoring order in Pine Creek. With renewed determination, Alan began compiling a comprehensive case against Karen and her associates. He meticulously organized evidence, including witness testimonies, video footage of suspicious activities, and financial records that revealed the HOA's misconduct. Each piece added weight to his argument and strengthened his resolve. As he prepared for battle, Alan recognized that this fight was about more than just him. It was about standing up for the rights of every homeowner who had been bullied into submission by an overreaching association. He envisioned a courtroom showdown where truth would prevail and justice would be served. Little did Karen know that she had underestimated Alan's capabilities. With each passing day, he transformed from a quiet homeowner into a formidable opponent, a judge ready to uphold the very laws that had been so blatantly disregarded by those wielding power in Pine Creek. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change everything. With a newfound sense of purpose, Alan dedicated himself to meticulously preparing for the legal battle against the HOA. He transformed his living room into a makeshift war room, strewn with documents, photographs, and notes. Each piece of evidence he had gathered became a vital component in the strategy he was crafting to expose Karen and her board. First, Alan organized the surveillance footage that captured the mysterious figure near his home on the night of the fire. He painstakingly reviewed it frame by frame, ensuring he could identify any connections to the HOA. Alongside this, he compiled witness testimonies from neighbors who had experienced similar harassment and intimidation tactics. Their accounts painted a clear picture of a pattern of corruption and abuse of power. Next came the financial records. Alan dug into the HOA's history, uncovering discrepancies in their accounting and transactions that pointed to potential embezzlement and favoritism. He contacted former members who had left the HOA due to its oppressive tactics, gathering their stories to further bolster his case. Armed with this extensive body of evidence, Alan began drafting legal documents that would initiate his lawsuit against the HOA. He was thorough in articulating his claims, defamation, harassment, and violations of property rights. This was not just about seeking reparation for his losses, it was about holding Karen accountable for her actions and restoring justice in Pine Creek. As he prepared for court, Alan reached out to colleagues within the legal community, seeking advice on presenting his case effectively. His reputation as a judge lent him credibility and respect among his peers, who were eager to support him in this fight. With each passing day, Alan felt more confident in his mission. He was no longer just an aggrieved homeowner. He was a man ready to wield the law as a weapon against tyranny. The stage was set for a dramatic showdown, a confrontation where truth would come to light and justice would finally be served. The day of confrontation finally arrived, and Alan felt a surge of adrenaline as he entered the courtroom. The atmosphere was charged with tension, the stakes were high, and he was ready to assert his rights against the HOA and its oppressive president, Karen. Dressed in a crisp suit, Alan radiated confidence, embodying the role he had held for years as a respected judge. As the proceedings began, Alan stood before the judge, ready to present his case against Karen and the HOA. He meticulously laid out the evidence he had gathered, the surveillance footage, witness testimonies, and financial records that revealed the corruption festering within the association. Each piece of evidence served as a testament to their wrongdoing, painting a clear picture of intimidation and malfeasance. When it was time for Karen to respond, she strutted into the courtroom with an air of defiance. Her confidence seemed unshakable, but Alan could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes when their gazes locked. As she attempted to dismiss his claims with feigned indignation, Alan felt a fire ignite within him. This was not just about him, it was about every homeowner who had suffered under her tyrannical rule. In a dramatic moment, Alan stepped forward to address the court. "Karen," he said firmly, "you've used your position to bully and intimidate my neighbors and me. You've turned this community into a battleground instead of fostering unity." His voice resonated through the room as he demanded accountability for her actions. The tension in the courtroom thickened as Alan continued to detail how Karen's manipulations had led to his home being set ablaze. With each assertion, he could see cracks forming in her facade. As he concluded his statements, Alan invoked not only his rights but also the collective rights of every homeowner in Pine Creek. "This is about justice," he declared passionately, "and it's time for you to face the consequences of your corruption." With that declaration hanging in the air, Alan knew that this confrontation would be pivotal, not just for him, but for the future of their community. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the trial reached its climax. Alan stood confidently before the judge and jury, his heart pounding but his mind sharply focused. He was ready to showcase the overwhelming evidence he had meticulously compiled against Karen and the HOA, and he knew this was his moment to shine. As he began his presentation, Alan's calm demeanor belied the intensity of the situation. He methodically laid out each piece of evidence, starting with the surveillance footage that captured the shadowy figure near his home on the night of the fire. The courtroom watched in silence as he played the video, highlighting key moments with precision. Gasps echoed through the audience when he pointed out a familiar face, the face of one of Karen's associates. Next, Alan introduced witness testimonies that painted a vivid picture of the harassment he and other homeowners had endured. He called upon Mrs. Collins, whose trembling voice echoed with conviction as she recounted her own experiences. Her story resonated deeply with those present, revealing a pattern of intimidation that extended beyond Alan himself. With each revelation, Alan built a compelling narrative that showcased not just his plight, but also a systemic abuse of power that threatened the very fabric of their community. The stark contrast between his sincerity and Karen's defensive tactics became increasingly apparent. As he approached his closing arguments, Alan's voice rose with passion. "This isn't merely about my home or my rights," he declared. "It's about standing up against tyranny and ensuring that every homeowner in Pine Creek can live without fear." The tension in the room was palpable as Alan concluded, leaving the jury to grapple with the weight of his words. It was no longer just a legal battle, it was a fight for justice that could redefine their neighborhood's future. As he stepped back, Alan felt an exhilarating rush. He had laid bare the truth, and now it was up to the court to deliver justice where it was long overdue. After days of gripping courtroom drama, the moment of truth arrived. The air was thick with anticipation as the judge prepared to announce the verdict. Alan stood at the front of the courtroom, his heart racing, surrounded by supportive neighbors and friends who had rallied behind him throughout this arduous journey. He had fought hard for justice, and now it was time to see if it would be served. As the judge cleared his throat, a hush fell over the room. After careful consideration of the evidence presented and the testimonies given, this court rules in favor of the plaintiff, Alan. The words echoed like a thunderclap in Alan's ears. Relief washed over him as he heard the rest of the ruling unfold. The judge detailed how Karen and the HOA had employed intimidation tactics, engaged in corruption, and violated not only Alan's rights but those of other homeowners as well. "This behavior is unacceptable and undermines the very foundation of community trust," he declared. It was as if a weight had been lifted from Alan's shoulders. He had not only vindicated himself but also exposed a systemic issue that plagued Pine Creek. The courtroom erupted in murmurs of disbelief and relief as Karen's face turned a shade paler, her facade crumbling. The power she once wielded began to dissipate in an instant. The judge ordered that the HOA be dismantled, with significant penalties imposed for their actions. Allen was not just awarded damages for his losses, he was a catalyst for change within the community. As Allen stepped outside the courthouse, cheers erupted from those who had supported him through this ordeal. Neighbors embraced him, thanking him for standing up against tyranny. It was more than just a personal victory, it was a triumph for justice, integrity, and community spirit. In that moment, Allen realized he had not only reclaimed his home, but also restored hope to Pine Creek. The neighborhood could once again thrive free from fear and oppression. Justice had been served, and it tasted sweet. In the wake of the court's ruling, the fallout for Karen and her associates was swift and severe. The judge's decision dismantled the HOA, stripping away the power that Karen had wielded for so long with an iron fist. It was a striking blow to her ego and influence in Pine Creek, one that she had never anticipated. As the news spread through the community, whispers of relief and celebration circulated among the residents who had suffered under the oppressive regime of the HOA. Meanwhile, Karen found herself facing a barrage of consequences. The court imposed hefty fines on her and her fellow board members for their unethical practices, financial penalties that would strain their personal resources and tarnish their reputations. In addition to financial repercussions, Karen faced potential legal actions from other homeowners who had been wronged. Allen's victory opened the floodgates for those who had felt powerless in the face of intimidation. Several residents came forward with their own stories, seeking redress for harassment and property damage. With Allen's evidence as a foundation, they formed a united front against Karen and her cronies. As the reality of her situation set in, Karen's once formidable presence in the community began to fade. Friends and supporters distanced themselves from her, unwilling to be associated with someone whose actions had led to such disgrace. The carefully cultivated image she had maintained shattered before her eyes. With each passing day, it became clear that Karen's reign of power was over. No longer would she be able to manipulate and bully homeowners into submission. The very community she sought to control now rallied together in solidarity, determined to rebuild their neighborhood on principles of trust and cooperation. Allen watched as Pine Creek began to heal from its wounds. The consequences for Karen and her associates served as a profound reminder that justice could prevail against tyranny, inspiring hope and resilience among those who had once felt helpless. In this newfound unity, Allen saw a brighter future for his home, a future free from fear and oppression. With the HOA dismantled and Karen's power stripped away, a sense of relief washed over Pine Creek. The oppressive atmosphere that had hung over the community for so long began to dissipate, replaced by a renewed spirit of camaraderie among the residents. Allen, having fought valiantly for justice, stepped into a role of leadership, determined to help restore peace and order in his neighborhood. In the weeks following the verdict, Allen organized community meetings to engage homeowners and discuss how they could move forward together. He encouraged open dialogue, allowing residents to voice their concerns and aspirations for Pine Creek. It was a refreshing change from the fear-based tactics that had once silenced them. Allen proposed the creation of a neighborhood association that prioritized cooperation and respect over control. This new group would focus on fostering community spirit through events, neighborhood improvement projects, and initiatives that celebrated their collective identity. Residents responded enthusiastically, eager to be part of this positive transformation. Together, they painted curbs, planted flowers in common areas, and organized block parties that rekindled friendships and built trust among neighbors. Allen felt a profound satisfaction as he watched the community come alive again, a stark contrast to the fear and division that had plagued it under Karen's regime. As Pine Creek began to thrive once more, Allen's commitment to fairness and justice resonated deeply with residents. He remained an approachable figure, always willing to lend an ear or offer advice on matters concerning their homes and lives. His actions inspired others to take pride in their neighborhood and work collaboratively towards shared goals. Through his efforts, Allen not only helped restore peace, but also transformed Pine Creek into a vibrant community where everyone felt valued. The lessons learned during this tumultuous time forged stronger bonds among neighbors, ensuring that the oppressive governance of the past would never return. Together, they embraced a brighter future, one built on unity, respect, and a commitment to supporting each other as true friends and neighbors. As Allen stood on his porch, looking out over the vibrant neighborhood he had fought so hard to protect, he felt a wave of reflection wash over him. The journey from a quiet homeowner seeking peace to a champion of justice had transformed not only his life, but also the fabric of Pine Creek. He never imagined that standing firm against the HOA would lead to such a profound awakening, both personally and within his community. He recalled the early days of his struggle, the intimidation, the harassment, and the devastating fire that nearly took everything from him. Those moments had tested his resolve and forced him to confront his fears. Yet through it all, he discovered an inner strength he didn't know he possessed. Alan understood now that it wasn't merely about defending his rights. It was about standing up for others who had been silenced. The battle against Karen and her cronies had illuminated a crucial truth. Tyranny can manifest in many forms, whether through oppressive governance or the subtle manipulation of fear. Alan recognized that complacency could no longer be an option, not when individuals and communities were at stake. He felt a deep responsibility to ensure that no one else would suffer in silence as he had. As Pine Creek thrived once more, Alan found solace in the unity and resilience of his neighbors. Together, they had fostered an environment where empathy and collaboration reigned. It was a testament to what could be achieved when people stood together against injustice. In this moment of reflection, Alan resolved to remain vigilant, ready to defend the principles of justice whenever they were threatened. He understood that every individual has the power to make a difference, no matter how small their actions may seem. The journey may have been arduous, but it ultimately underscored the importance of courage in standing up against tyranny in any form. With renewed purpose, Alan embraced his role as both a homeowner and a protector of justice, committed to ensuring that Pine Creek remained a place where freedom and integrity flourished for all.